Ah, Akkala, a pretty cool and underappreciated place. Home of Tarrey Town, an ancient tech lab, multiple stables and great ferries, not to mention several interesting and special landmarks and multiple memories to recover. What's up, fellow Zelda enthusiasts? For this one, we'll be situated in the upper right hand or northeast corner of the map, directly to the east of Death Mountain in Eldin and north of Lanayru. The borders for this tour are quite easy to establish. There's really only one significant difference between the Breath of the Wild Akkala Tower region and Tears of the Kingdom's Ulri Mountain Skyview Tower region, and that's the southern border along Lanayru. So I'll be using this road here as the cutoff, as that's what makes the most sense to me, and on that note, we'll be starting from the south and working our way up north progressively. The towers for this region in each game are not too far away from one another, but they're definitely not next door neighbors either. Both are built in the southern half of the region, west of Tarrey Town, giving them a similar perspective, and the Akkala Tower is much higher in elevation than the Ulri Mountain Tower, but then again the Skyview Tower blasts up way higher than Akkala. And so without further ado, let's go. Starting out in Kaepora Pass, we get one Zonai and one Sheikah Shrine around here. They're both the convenient fast travel warp points for going to Tarrey Town, the Rasa Takiwak and the Da Hesho respectively. Where the Zonai Shrine will be is a single Armoranth in Breath of the Wild, and where the Sheikah Shrine was is now a rock to lift with 20 rupees underneath and tears. And on the nearby ledge, we get our first double Korok spot, where we see 3 statues in both games. In Breath of the Wild, we have offering plates for dropping an apple into one, and in Tears of the Kingdom, you must hit the flowers popping up around them. And speaking of Koroks, the great fairy fountain of this region has been replaced with another one you must catch. I don't think any in-game reason was given for why all the great fairies moved. Story-wise, there's no reason for it, so it must have been a decision to help make exploration feel fresh for Breath of the Wild veterans. And there are way more silent princesses around here than there used to be. Moving on and up to this little plateau from here, this land has been flattened out and cleared quite nicely to make for a prime property to build your in-game dream home, as you can do once you progress the Tarrey Town side quest in Tears of the Kingdom. Slightly west of here, in Lake Akkala, right in front of the waterfalls, in Tears of the Kingdom we have the Joshi Ihagala Shrine on one small piece of land sticking out. It requires a laser crystal to access, which is all the way over in Tarrey Town. This spot was underwater in Breath of the Wild, and in that game there were tons of treasure chests in the water around this area, and there's only 2 in Tears of the Kingdom. None in the exact same location. West of the lake, in the South Akkala Plains, we find the South Akkala Plains Chasm, and where it is now, there used to be a blue Hinox sleeping between 2 rows of trees. An interesting change. Then, a little further west, we have 2 more of by far the most common swaps between games, yeah, you guessed it, double Korok spots. First, on the broken pillar of the Akkala Span Bridge, where in Breath of the Wild you must stasis away a rock slab off of the little rock and lift it, and in Tears you must uncork the blockage. And then on top the little nearby mountain, where we must complete the rock circle in Breath of the Wild and catch the fairy lights in Tears of the Kingdom. Standing in this spot and facing east, you'll see a Guardian Skywatcher across the way on patrol, where now a Thunder Gliok claims this territory. And looking slightly north of there, to the Akkala Citadel ruins, we see more Guardian Skywatchers, and at the base of the Citadel we now find the entry to the Akkala Citadel Ruins Cave, which is covered over with dirt and dead Guardians in Breath of the Wild. Inside this cave is basically just a Horriblin lair. Ascending all the way to the top, we find ourselves at the ruins which once surrounded the Akkala Tower. There was a ton of malice up here during the Calamity, along with a strong bokoblin presence. Now the coast is clear, except for one lone gloom spawn. In the southwest corner of the ruins is now a small, easy-to-miss hole where you can climb through, then drop down to immediately find the Fierce Deity armor inside the Akkala Citadel Ruins Summit Cave. The Bubble Frog is also tucked away in an easy-to-miss hidden room. And if you ascend from this Bubble Frog room back up top, you'll be right in front of the Damizuin Shrine. The hidden passage to this area is even more easy to miss in Breath of the Wild because there are a couple of crates blocking the way. Making our way through to the other side, we see, despite the hole opening up in the floor between the games, the 2 clay pots have remained. And there used to be a treasure chest containing 5 fire arrows. Heading northwest of the Akkala Tower, the next main thing we'll come across is the Z Kasho Shrine in Breath of the Wild. And a bit farther north of that, in Tears of the Kingdom, is the Maya Chideg Shrine. There's another rock to lift now where the Sheikah Shrine was, a swap that's been happening a lot lately. And anyway, both shrines are used as convenient warp points to get to the South Akkala stable. We can, of course, explore down the well, which was non-existent in Breath of the Wild, where down here we find a lost Kuko that will lay an egg if you bring a fellow Kuko to visit, but then you might feel bad like I did because you left 2 of them down there with no food, so it's only a matter of time before, well, you know what I mean. Heading east into the Tauren wetlands, we see they're wetter now than they were before. This used to be a more forested area with some ruins guarded by guardians, but now this land has been cleared out quite nicely to make way for a major Hudson construction site. There's the Tarrey Town Races building, not to mention the construction site well, which connects the cave system and has some free Zonai devices for the taking. For better accessibility, some roads have been carved out this way, one of which forks and goes back up, heading south to connect to the Akkala Parade Ground ruins where we just were. And on top of all that, there's also a Zonai device dispenser in the wetlands, one of only 3 on the surface, and the second one we've covered so far in the series. Looking around at Lake Akkala before we leave this area, it's clear to see how littered this body of water has become by the fallen skyrocks from the island debris. And this brings me to Tarrey Town. Now, when you first arrive here in Breath of the Wild, or if you do so before completing the side quest, there's nothing to note on this plot of land except for the goddess statue in the center, suggesting that this area is special. But when comparing to the completed Tarrey Town from the first game, the stores have moved around a bit or changed. The inn is still in the same place, but there's no more clothing store, nor is there an ore and more. The general shop has moved to the other side of town next to the break-apart shop, and the guy who would sell us important, unique things from his balcony has left town, likely because now the bargainer statues provide that service. Then we also have the newly formed Monster Gallery here in Tears, and how could I not mention the roller coaster? There's also a small cave with an entrance down the side of the rock under Hudson and Ronson's place named the Tarrey Town Tunnel. Inside is a pedestal to ascend through to access a room that's stuck shut due to a fallen Hudson sign. Heading northeast to Malin Bay is where we find the iconic spiraling Wrist Peninsula. At the end of this spiral, in the center, there's a double shrine spot. The Ritag Zumo in Breath of the Wild, and the Gemimik in Tears. The Gemimik shrine is always there, whereas the Ritag Zumo needs to have an orb placed on the pedestal to bring it up from the ground. I'm always curious to see what lies where Sheikah shrines once stood and satisfied by anything, especially the occasional Zonai shrine. The peninsula is guarded by a bunch of enemies in both games, primarily moblins, horseback bokos, Lizalfos, and Octoroks in Breath of the Wild, and Arakudas carrying Lizalfos and armored bokoblins in Tears. But in Tears also has some pirate ships nearby. Another difference is that in the second game there's another Dragon tier memory here, number 12, Tear of the Dragon, but this one is only available after you collect all the others. What's cool though is that the pedestal for the orb is in the exact same place the teardrop is hidden. Heading west back onto fully dry land, we immediately come across the East Akkala Plains, which now has a chasm. This is the one Dinral emerges from along the half of her path that goes across the surface. There was nothing always here in Breath of the Wild, but a couple of Stalkoblins may be found riding around on undead horses. And right next to it is where a gigantic enemy swap happens, where a Stalnox once was is now a Battle Talus. Northwest of this chasm is the Sanatanika Shrine in Tears of the Kingdom, and southwest of here is where we find the Ulri Mountain Skyview Tower, which is just an open plain in Breath of the Wild. So then, heading northeast, there's an interesting natural change in the area that used to be completely dry, but is now filled with water and is called Octorok Lake. This is also a double Korok spot. There used to be a platform to stand on, which would spawn a ring of light you had to run to. And in Tears of the Kingdom, there's a small path of dry land in this marshy, swampy, watery place with a pile of leaves where the platform was that once cleared or destroyed will have a rock that needs to be picked up. Moving west to Ordorok Quarry, there used to be 3 Guardian Skywatchers patrolling around, and now there's only 1 Gloom spawn waiting for the ambush. Then just north of here, heading through a sort of curtain of leaves in both games, is the Spring of Power. It looks mostly the same as it did in Breath of the Wild, minus the door between the waterfalls leading to the Tutsuwa Nima Shrine. However, it's been replaced by a Korok running around on top above where the shrine was. And we also got Memory 13 in that game, Slumbering Power, the one where Zelda is showing frustration with her inability to awaken the sealing power she knows is deep down within her. Heading east takes us directly to the East Akkala Stable, which was also missing a well in Breath of the Wild. But down it in Tears is one of the more interesting finds. Behind some bombable rock, you can find a goddess statue down here. Nearby is the Katosa Og Shrine in Breath of the Wild, and a little bit further away and less convenient but still the best warp point you can get for this stable in Tears is the Joshiu Shrine. As what seems to be the pattern with most but not all stable shrines, there's a liftable rock where the Shuka Shrine was and nothing in Breath of the Wild where the Zonai Shrine eventually will be. Also, in Tears of the Kingdom, on the path between these 2 shrine locations is a Yiga roadblock with the NPC Loon, the girl who loves guardians, or more specifically, old things. And I know you guys love double Korok spots, so on the cliffside just to the east of the stable is another one. In Breath of the Wild, you complete the Circle of Rocks, and in Tears of the Kingdom, you position the block puzzle to make a spiral shape. Let's continue by heading north along the shore for another big enemy overworld swap. In Breath of the Wild, we come across a Guardian Stalker on patrol, and now there's a rare stone talus waiting. Heading west from here, back up top, you'll notice Bloodleaf Lake is drying up, and since it's dried up a little bit more, it's created a path to where you now find Melania Spring. Yeah, that's right, the horse god has moved up here now, so if you've got any deceased horses, or you do in the future, now you know where to go. In Breath of the Wild, this whole area was infested with monsters, mostly moblins, and was on the path needed to take the Blue Flame to the Tech Lab. The Blue Flame Furnace is on top of Tumlia Heights, where there's now a small rock to lift for a Korok seed. If we continue west from Tumlia Heights, down into the North Akkala Valley, we find a double Lionel location. In Breath of the Wild, it was a blue main Lionel, and in Tears, it's just a regular base level Lionel. North of here, we have 2 more double Korok spots in a row. First, on this rocky archway in Breath of the Wild, you shoot the balloon under the rocks, and in Tears, you stand on the stump on top of the rocks and glide down to the marked spot. Then, heading into the center of Rock Woods, which is home to many Octoroks, you must pick up the rock on the large tree in Breath of the Wild, and then at the base of this tree, there are now 2 statues with offering bowls where you've got to place an apple into one of them. By the way, these Koroks are the same. You get a green long man. Is it the same exact Korok that's been living here all the time? That's anybody's guess, but I like to think so. And this would not be a proper tour of Akkala if we didn't go to Skull Lake, one of the coolest natural formations on the map. Starting with the nose piece, a rock to lift for a Korok seed has appeared on the little pillar since the Breath of the Wild days. This pillar is so small, it's actually hard to stand and pick up the rock, but obviously it's doable. The left eye is where we found Kilton in his monster shop before he starts appearing in other places to actually do business trades in Mon. Which, yes, by the way, I accidentally saved when I did that and I couldn't get footage of it, so here he is at Kakariko. The left eye in Tears of the Kingdom contains the opening to the Skull Lake Chasm. And then atop the extremely elevated right eye is where the Zuna Kai Shrine was in Breath of the Wild, which is now the entryway to the Skull Lake Cave, which looks like you're dropping down a chasm when you enter it. Inside the cave itself, many stall enemies reside, and there's also the Fierce Deity mask. Cool, right? Get an iconic mask and a cave shaped like a face. Get it? Got it? Good. Then, slightly to the east of the cliffside surrounding Skull Lake, in Tears of the Kingdom, is the Kamatukish Shrine. Now heading way back east to the corner of the map is the Akkala Ancient Tech Lab, which has been overtaken by Yiga and is missing the furnace you'd bring that blue flame to. You must clear them out to free their prisoner Kanba and acquire the Yiga shirt. Of course, Cherry the Ancient Machine is also missing inside. The Yiga have barricaded access to the second floor with sheets of wood and boxes, and they've drilled a little peephole through the front door. They also created an unflattering caricature of Link. Then, on top of the tech lab in a deck chair, you may have found the Korok hanging out in the sun, where now is a frog statue wearing a Yiga blindfold. And all the way down into the very, very northeast corner of the overworld is the Rizawak Shrine in Tears of the Kingdom. In Breath of the Wild, this is the only corner of the overworld that doesn't have a shrine. And just south of here in Tears is the entrance to the North Akkala Beach Cave, where 4 luminous stone ore deposits were. The cave itself runs northward under the water straight to the Lomi Labyrinth Island. And now you may be thinking, oh, Tone, tell us what changed inside the labyrinth. Well, a lot. Way too much to cram into the rest of this video, so besides mentioning how there's water flooded in here now, you'll have to wait until I create an episode comparing all 3 labyrinths. Really 9 because Tears adds the sky and the depth variance for each, so look out for that in the future. I also intend to make comparison videos on other things than regions like I did with Malice vs. Gloom. Stuff like the Sheikah Slate vs. Purapad will probably be next, dragon interactions and behaviors, the champion abilities versus the ghost partner champion powers, the runes versus the right arm magical powers, the Great Plateau versus the Great Sky Islands, the 2 Temples of Time, so much more, so look out for those as well. Thank you so very much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it and I appreciate it more than I can say. Your watch time adds up and supports the channel so much. If you want to support even more, you can leave a like on this video, join the channel memberships to get cute emotes, exclusive videos, and other cool perks, subscribe to catch the next video when it drops, and share this one with somebody you know who might also enjoy it. Anyway, thanks again. I'll be back as soon as I can with more content, and until then, stay cool and always keep punching out there. Aloha!